Memory and forgetting. In psychology, memory is an organism's mental ability to store, retain, and recall information. Memory is the process of taking in information from the world around us, processing it, storing it, and later recalling that information, sometimes many years later. Memory is the retention of, and ability to recall, personal experience and procedures. Hermann Ebbinghaus was a German psychologist who pioneered the experimental study of memory, and is known for his discovery of the forgetting curve and the spacing effect. Process of memory. There are three major processes involved in memory: encoding, storage, and retrieval. Encoding is transforming information into a form that can be entered and retained in the memory system. Storage is retaining information in memory so that it can be used at a later time. Retrieval is recovering information stored in memory so that we are consciously aware of it. Stages of memory. Memory can be characterized in terms of stages, the length of time that information remains available to us. Information begins in sensory memory, moves to short-term memory, and eventually moves to long-term memory. But not all information makes it through all three stages. Most of it is forgotten. Whether the information moves from shorter duration memory into longer duration memory or whether it is lost from memory entirely depends on how the information is attended to and processed. Sensory memory. Sensory memory refers to the brief storage of sensory information. Capacity. Can hold many items at once. Duration. Very brief retention of information. 3 seconds for visual information. 2 seconds for auditory information. Attention is needed to transfer information from sensory memory to working memory. Types of sensory memory. Auditory sensory memory. Memory of a sound or echo called echoic memory. Visual sensory memory. Memory of an image or icon, also called iconic memory. In some people, iconic memory seems to last longer, a phenomenon known as eidetic imagery, or photographic memory, in which people can report details of an image over long periods of time. Short-term memory or working memory. Short-term memory, STM, is the place where small amounts of information can be temporarily kept for more than a few seconds, but usually for less than 1 minute. Information in short-term memory is not stored permanently but rather becomes available for us to process, and the processes that we use to make sense of, modify, interpret, and store information in STM are known as working memory. Maintenance rehearsal. Information that is not rehearsed can decay from STM very quickly. One way to prevent the decay of information from short-term memory is to use working memory to rehearse it. Maintenance rehearsal is the process of repeating information mentally or out loud with the goal of keeping it in memory. We engage in maintenance rehearsal to keep something that we want to remember, for example a person's name, email address, or phone number, in mind long enough to write it down, use it, or potentially transfer it to long-term memory. Chunking. One way we are able to expand our ability to remember things in STM is by using a memory technique called chunking. Chunking is the process of organizing information into smaller groupings, chunks, thereby increasing the number of items that can be held in STM. For instance, try to remember the string of 12 letters, you probably won't do that well because the number of letters is more than the magic number of 7. Take another example. Which is easier to remember? Long-term memory. If information makes it past short-term memory, it may enter long-term memory, LTM, memory storage that can hold information for days, months, and years. The capacity of long-term memory is large, and there is no known limit to what we can remember. Encoding. Encoding is the process of moving information from our short-term, or working memory, into our long-term memory. Automatic processing. Automatic processing refers to all information that enters long-term memory without conscious effort. For example, what did you eat for lunch today? Effortful processing. Effortful processing is when information is processed only with effort by the person, as opposed to automatic processing. For example, for one to remember a phone number requires effortful processing. Types of long-term memory. There are two components of long-term memory, explicit and implicit. Explicit memory. Explicit memory refers to knowledge or experiences that can be consciously remembered. There are two types of explicit memory, episodic and semantic. Episodic memory refers to the first-hand experiences that we have had. For example, recollections of our high school graduation day or of the fantastic dinner we had in New York last year. Semantic memory refers to our knowledge of facts and concepts about the world. The absolute value of 90 is greater than the absolute value of 9, and that one definition of the word affect is the experience of feeling or emotion. Implicit memory. Implicit memory refers to the influence of experience on behavior, even if the individual is not aware of those influences. There are three general types of implicit memory: procedural memory, classical conditioning effects, and priming. Procedural memory refers to our often unexplainable knowledge of how to do things. Procedural memory refers to our often unexplainable knowledge of how to do things. When we walk from one place to another, speak to another person in English, dial a cell phone, or play a video game, we are using procedural memory. Procedural memory allows us to perform complex tasks, even though we may not be able to explain to others how we do them. For example, how to ride a bicycle. A second type of implicit memory is classical conditioning effects, in which we learn, often without effort or awareness, to associate neutral stimuli, such as a sound or a light, with another stimulus, such as food, which creates a naturally occurring response, such as enjoyment or salivation. The memory for the association is demonstrated when the conditioned stimulus, the sound, begins to create the same response as the unconditioned stimulus, the food, did before the learning. The final type of implicit memory is known as priming, or changes in behavior as a result of experiences that have happened frequently or recently. Priming refers both to the activation of knowledge. For example, we can prime the concept of kindness by presenting people with words related to kindness, and to the influence of that activation on behavior. People who are primed with the concept of kindness may act more kindly. Memory is controlled by which part of brain? The hippocampus. Primitive structure deep in brain plays the single largest role in processing of memory. The amygdala, an almond-shaped area near the hippocampus, processes emotion and help imprint memories that involve emotion. The cerebral cortex, outer layer of the brain, stores most long-term memory in different zones, depending on what kind of processing the information involves: language, sensory input, problem solving, and so forth. Thank you for watching. Subscribe to Quick Psychology for more audio lectures and PowerPoint presentation on psychology.